Hello boys and girls, this is Miss Coville, and this lesson is for all 5th grade students at Bethune Elementary. In this video, we'll be going over lesson 26, Finding Volume Using Formulas. This lesson is for all of Mr. Moore and Miss Coville's math students. The standard we will be covering is MGSE5, MD5A, and MD5B. These standards involving finding the volume of rectangular prisms. Students should have experiences to describe and reason about why the formula is true, specifically that they are covering the bottom of a right rectangular prism, length times width, with multiple layers, which will be height. Therefore, the formula length times width times height is an extension of the formula for the area of a rectangle. Some vocabulary that you will be hearing and seeing in this video will be volume, area, length, width, and height. Please be sure to write down all notes in your packet or on blank paper. Let's get started, boys and girls. So in the previous lessons, we learned how to find volume by counting unit cubes. In this lesson, you will learn how to find volume using a formula. So we're going to take a look at this problem. Becky uses 1-inch cubes to create a model for a small paper gift bag she is making. Her model is a rectangular prism. What is the volume of Becky's model? Based off of our previous lessons, we could find the volume by counting our 1-inch cubes. But in this lesson, we are going to find a formula to be able to calculate our volume. So A asks us, the model has a length of blank inches and a width of blank inches. So if we're going to look at length, we're going to look at the longest part, which would be the bottom. And we're going to see how long is our model. And again, we're going to remember that they told us that each cube is 1 inch long. So the bottom length will be 1, 2, 3, 4 inches in length. So we're going to write that down in our space right here. So now we need to see the width of the prism. So if we're going to look at the width or how wide it is, we can either look at the side, this side right here, or the top right here. So let's just look at the top right here. Let's see how wide it is. So we see that we have 2 1-inch cubes. So that means that the width of this rectangular prism is 2 inches. Now B says how many cubes are on the top layer of the model. So that means I need to count how many individual 1-inch cubes are on this top layer. So I see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 1-inch cubes. So there are 8 cubes on the top layer of our model. And question C asks us, how can you find the number of cubes in the top layer without counting the cubes? So at this time, think to yourself, how do you think you could have found the number of cubes on the top layer without even counting? Good job, boys and girls. We could have simply multiplied. We could have multiplied our length, which is 4, how long it is, times our width, how wide it is. And that would have given us the number of cubes on this top layer. So let's press pause and write that answer in the space below. So your answer should say in complete sentences, to find the number of cubes on the top layer, I can multiply 4, which is the length, times 2, which is my width. And question D says, how many layers of cubes does the model have? So let's see how many layers. And a layer will be the amount of rows. So I have 1, 2, 3 layers. So we can put 3 because we see and know that that has 3 layers. Make sure you're pressing pause and you're writing down all of your work in your packet or on a blank piece of paper. All right. Now, E asks us how many cubes are in Becky's model. So if we were to go based off of our previous lessons, we could have simply multiplied 8, which is a number of cubes on the top layer, by the amount of layers, 3. So I know that 8 times 3 is what, boys and girls? 8 times 3 is 24. Now, in this lesson, we're going to use a formula to solve for volume. But first, before we go into our formula, I want you to explain how you can find volume of Becky's model without counting each cube. So explain in your own words how we found that the model is 24 1-inch cubes in your own words. Press pause at this time. So your explanation can say, there are 8 cubes in every layer, and there are 3 layers. So there are 24 cubes in Becky's model. The volume of her model is 24 cubic inches. Now be sure to put the unit of measurement that it's measured in after your volume. So her prism was measured in inches, so we put 24 cubic inches. All right, let's move on to the next page. So below is a picture of Becky's gift bag next to her model. Notice that the base of the bag is a rectangle, 4 inches long. This area right here is 4 inches long and 2 inches wide. So if we look at the base, it's 2 inches wide. The area of the base is 8 square inches. The height of the bag is 3 inches. So it's 3 inches, which is the height. Now, previously we said 3 layers. But now we're going to include heights. So our layers is also classified as our heights. Look at the model. There are 8 cubes in each layer. There are 3 layers of cubes. So let's look at our formula. Volume will equal the number of cubes in each layer times the number of layers. So let's break that down. The number of cubes in each layer is 8. And how did we say we got 8 last time? We multiplied the length, 4, times the width, 2, which is 8. And the number of layers, which I just said, is 3. And instead of calling it a layer, we can call it its height. So we see that length, 4 inches, times width, 2 inches, times 3, the height, or the amount of layers, will give us our volume. So the new formula to find volume will be length times width times height. Be sure to press pause at this time and write this down in your packet or on a blank sheet of paper. Now let's reflect. The area of the base of the gift bag is the product of the length and the width of the bag. What is the volume of the bag? Explain how you can use the area of the base of the gift bag to find the volume of the bag. So at this time, I want you to look back at our formula and in your own words, explain how we got length times width times height, simply using our 3 numbers, 3 inches, 2 inches, and 4 inches. Do so at this time. So my explanation says the volume of the bag is 24 cubic inches. You can multiply the area of the base, which we found is 8, by the height of the gift bag, which we know is 3, to get 24 cubic inches. Make sure you're writing this down, and let's go to the next page. So now we're going to explore different ways to find the volume of a rectangular prism. Gareth has a rectangular pencil cup on his desk. The cup is 3 inches long, 2 inches wide, and 5 inches high. What is the volume of the pencil cup? So we can do one of 2 things. We can picture it by using the picture of the pencil cup as a rectangular prism made up of 1-inch cubes as we see below. Or we can model it by drawing a model of the pencil cup and labeling its dimensions. So if we're going to use the picture it by using the 1-inch cubes, we could simply calculate by looking at the number of layers, which we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see that there are 5 layers, and I can multiply it by what? Let me think. Ooh, I know. I can look at my top layer and I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cubes in each layer. So I can multiply 5 times 6. Now, if I look at model it, this looks familiar. This is what we just learned. I see my length, I see my width, and I see my height. And I just learned that I can multiply all those together and get my volume. So question 2 says, we're going to explain how you can find the volume of the pencil cup using the picture and then find the volume. So if we reference our picture over here to the right, we said we found the volume by counting the amount of layers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. And we multiplied it by the amount of cubes on its top layer. So I can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1-inch cubes on the top layer. So I multiplied 6 times 4, and I found that my volume is 30 cubic inches. So write your explanation in the space right here in question 2. Press pause. Do so now. Alright, so your response should be similar but not the same. And it could say, I know there are 6 cubes in every layer of the prism, and there are 5 layers. Therefore, I can find my volume by multiplying 6 times 4, which equals 30. So there are 30 cubes in all. The volume is 30 cubic inches. Now for question 3, explain how the area of the base of the model of the pencil cup and model it relates to the prism and picture it. So we need to explain how the base right here and model it. So we know our base is 3 times 2, our length times our width is our base. And we're going to explain how this compares to the pencil cup or relates to it in our picture it prism. So what in picture it can we compare 3 times 2 our base to? Think to yourself, So I know 3 times 2 is 6. So my base is 6. And I also see that my top layer in picture it has 6 individual 1-inch cubes. Those are similar. So in your own words, explain how the base of the model it 3 inches by 2 inches can compare or relates to the prism and picture it. Press pause. So your answer should be similar but not the same. The area of the base in square inches is 6 length times width, which is the number of unit cubes in each layer of the prism and picture it. Now for 4, explain how you can find the volume of the pencil cup using the model. So we see here a model. We can find the volume of the pencil cup by simply using our formula. Length times width times height equals our volume. So we take our length, 3, multiply by our width, 2, times our height, 5, and we get 30 cubic inches. So in your own words, explain right here below and press pause. So a possible explanation could have been, you can multiply the length times the width to find the area of the base. Then multiply the area of the base times the height to find the volume. Make sure you're pressing pause and writing all of this down in your packet or on a blank piece of paper. Let's move on to question 5. Question 5 says write 2 different multiplication equations you can use to find the volume of the pencil cup. So look at the model to our right, and we have picture it and model it. Which 2 different multiplications equations did we use to find volume? Press pause and write it in the space below. So one multiplication equation we use is 3 times 2 times 5, our length times our width times our height, which gave us a product of 30 cubic inches. Or we also used 6 times 5, the number of cubes per layer, 6, multiplied by the number of layers, 5, which gave us a product of 30 as well, 30 cubic inches. Question 6. Explain how you can use the dimensions of a rectangular prism to find its volume. So think to yourself, and how did we use the dimensions, which you would find here and model it? These are classified as its dimensions. How did we use our dimensions of a rectangular prism to find its volume? Press pause and write your answer in the space below. So you can multiply the length, width, and height, or you can multiply the area of the base times the height. Now again, we know area is always length times width. So the area is always going to be at the base or the bottom, and you'll get that answer. So our area of our base for our model, it will be 3 times 6. And you take that answer and multiply by your height. 6 times 5 is 30. So we're going to use what we just learned about finding volume to solve these problems. Make sure, boys and girls, you are writing your work on a scratch piece of paper. Question 7 says, what is the volume of a rectangular jewelry box with a length of 8 centimeters, a width of 5 centimeters, and a height of 4 centimeters? Again, remember what our formula is. Press pause, work it out on blank paper, and write your answer in the space below. All right, so you should have gotten 160 cubic centimeters. How? Because you multiply your length times your width times your height. Our length is 8 centimeters. 8, and our width is 5 centimeters. 8 times 5 is 40. And then we multiply 40 by our height. 40 times 4 is 160. 8 says, how much space is taken up by a book that is 12 inches long, 10 inches wide, and 4 inches tall? Press pause and work this out on your own. All right, your answer should be 120 cubic inches. Why? We multiplied our length, which is 12 inches, times our width, 10 inches, times 1, which is our height. So 12 times 10 is 120. Multiplied by 1 is 120. Make sure you are putting cubic inches at the end because we see that it's being measured in inches. So we put cubic inches. For number 7, we see that our unit of measurement is centimeters. So we're putting our volume as cubic centimeters. Now on your own, you are going to work on pages 260, 261, 262, and 263 on your own, boys and girls. If you need assistance, please be sure to watch this video again. Make sure you're working every question out on a blank piece of scratch paper.